Hello and welcome to In Focus. Tonight, Europe steps up with massive financial and military support, recognizing Ukraine not only as a partner, but as a source of innovation. And at the same time, Ukraine is striking deep, targeting the very foundations of Russia's war economy. This is a story of pressure and progress, on the battlefield, in diplomacy, and in global markets. We begin in Europe, where support for Ukraine is not only increasing, it's evolving into strategic cooperation that benefits both sides. More on how Ukraine is shaping the future of modern defense in our next report.
The first tranche of the €90 billion loan to Ukraine will be disbursed by the end of June. €6 billion is expected to be spent on Ukrainian drones, as announced by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen at the European Parliament's plenary session.
In spring, we have said that we would deliver on the 90 billion loan for Ukraine one way or the other. Now we made good on this promise. We will disburse the first tranche of 45 billion euros for 2026, still this quarter. 1/3 for budgetary needs and 2/3 go to Ukraine's defense. And the first defense package will be on drones from Ukraine to Ukraine, worth some 6 billion euros. So our message is very clear. We will continue our support to the brave Ukrainian people and their armed forces. While Russia is doubling down on its aggression, Europe doubles down on our support for Ukraine.
The EU loan to Ukraine is set for 2 years, 2026 and 2027. The funds will be used for weapons production, purchasing necessary armament from partners, and restoring and preparing Ukraine's energy sector and critical infrastructure for the winter.
We need to protect everything we can, everything we can manage. We need to ensure this as much as possible and prepare for the winter. For this, in addition to local budgets, there's a portion we can provide from the central budget. The funding will come from these tranches of the 90 billion euros. We are expecting several billion to be directed into the economy, specifically for protecting energy infrastructure.
The EU has also approved its 20th sanctions package against Russia. This package targets several key sectors, from energy to finance and logistics, and increases pressure on Russia's energy sector, the shadow fleet of the aggressor country, and financial institutions supporting the Russian military-industrial complex. The war against Ukraine is becoming increasingly costly for Moscow, while Kyiv strengthens its capabilities for a fair end to the war, according to Ukraine's Ministry of Defense.
The 20th package is systemic. Its impact on Russia's offensive potential is cumulative. Each blocked supply chain, each sanctioned enterprise, each sanctioned ship of the Shadow Fleet means additional costs and delays in restoring the aggressor's combat resources. Along with the 90 billion euro loan for Ukraine, this package creates pressure from both sides. Russia pays more for continuing the war, while Ukraine receives more resources to end it on fair terms. From a post on the website of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine.
German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius noted that military assistance to Ukraine is beneficial for Berlin. Germany is learning from Ukraine in areas such as UAV technologies and cybersecurity. The country plans to send more military attachés to its diplomatic mission in Kyiv to strengthen bilateral cooperation in the defense sector.
Ukraine is a country that, out of necessity, has developed an unbelievable capacity for innovation and speed. They do not develop technologies under laboratory conditions, but rather, quite literally, on the battlefield. Boris Pistorius, German Defense Minister from DW Publication.
Ukrainian armament and technology are becoming increasingly in demand, not only in Europe but also in the Middle East. Ukraine is expected to earn from arms exports, President Volodymyr Zelensky believes.
Our special working format, with partners helping Ukraine, drone deals, is already operational with countries from 3 parts of the world: the Middle East, the Persian Gulf, Europe, and the Caucasus. We also have proposals on the table from our American partners. And we're talking about drones, defense systems, and other types of weaponry needed to create real protection in the air, on land, and at sea. Again, the conditions must be favorable for Ukraine, with clear oversight, and the money from exports should help Ukraine defend itself. That's how it will be.
Poland plans to test its own armament in real combat conditions on the Ukrainian front and is considering the possibility of jointly producing drones with Ukraine on Polish territory, said Deputy Defense Minister Cezary Tomczyk. Earlier, Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced plans to create a large-scale drone fleet, relying on the experience of Ukraine's defense forces. Reported by Maria Zheluchenko, UATV News.
While Ukraine strengthens partnerships abroad, it is also taking decisive action to weaken Russia's ability to continue the war. And these efforts are delivering measurable results. More in the following story.
The long range of Ukrainian sanctions exceeds 1,500 kilometers, and the Ukrainian defense forces have no intention of stopping, said President Volodymyr Zelensky. According to him, these sanctions are a just response to Russian terror. It is important that each strike reduces Russia's military industry, logistics, and oil exports, the president emphasized. We have recorded an updated level of Russian export losses resulting from Ukraine's long-range sanctions, specifically Port of Primorsk, down 13% in throughput, Novorossiysk, down 38%, Ust-Luga, down 43%. We believe these internal Russian figures may be understated. For our part, we will continue the operation to reduce Russia's oil revenues and export volumes. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, on X. The strikes of the Ukrainian defense forces are so effective that even the Kremlin can no longer remain silent. After a series of attacks on the Tuapse oil refinery, massive fires and oil rains, a state of emergency has been declared in the municipal district. However, Putin referred to the governor of the Krasnodar region, who reported to him that there were no serious threats. The Kremlin does not usually respond to Ukrainian strikes against Russian oil infrastructure, but the impact of Ukraine's strikes was apparently so significant that it prompted personal responses from Putin and Peskov on April 28th. From the ISW report. The actions of the Ukrainian army in this regard are absolutely systematic, pragmatic, and rational. We are thus removing any illusions from the highest military political leadership of the Russian Federation that resources for large-scale aggression against Ukraine will continue indefinitely. No, nothing is eternal under the moon. Accordingly, the current actions of the Ukrainian defense forces aim to prove to Vladimir Putin and his circle that resources, just like the Russian army, wear out. Although the escalation in the Middle East has caused oil prices to spike, the aggressor country's budget is still struggling. The overall picture for the Russian economy remains negative. For January to May, oil and gas revenue for the budget is expected to be around 2.94 trillion rubles, compared to 3.16 trillion rubles last year, according to Reuters. It is becoming increasingly difficult to hide these problems. Russian officials are now openly discussing them.
In the first quarter, budget expenditures were significantly higher not only than the seasonal norm, but also compared to the elevated levels of 2025. And when in past periods we had a higher expenditure dynamics early in the year, it generally led to increased expenses and budget deficits throughout the year. We are awaiting revised budget parameters for the current year. Elvira Nabiullina, Governor of the Central Bank of Russia.
The EU's ban on the import of Russian LNG under short-term contracts came into effect on April 25, 2026, and restrictions on long-term agreements will take effect on January 1, 2027. Therefore, Moscow is actively seeking new markets for its LNG in Asia. However, for this, Russia needs to secure additional vessels for liquefied natural gas transportation. According to the Moscow Times, 4 new LNG tankers, Orion, Luch, Mercury, and Cosmos, have already appeared on the Russian registry. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas arrived in Brunei for a meeting with the foreign ministers of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations and urged them to stop importing Russian energy resources.
Just let me remind you that the oil revenues are the revenues that Russia is using to fund this war. We have interest that this war stops, and wars end when aggressors run out of money to finance them, and that's why it's in our interest that the revenues from the Russian oil are actually shrinking. And that is also our message to our partners everywhere in the world that seek stability. We want wars to end, we want peace, and then we don't have these kind of problems. So that's why we are, of course, advocating for diversifying resources and finding them elsewhere, not from Russia.
The EU has already begun work on a new 21st sanctions package against Russia, announced Estonia's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Margus Tsahkna. The main focus of the economic sanctions will be Russia's energy exports, reported by Nikita Skoblikov, UATV News.
Ukraine is proving that strength is not only measured in weapons, but in resilience, innovation, and the ability to adapt faster than the enemy. As pressure on Russia grows and global support for Ukraine deepens, the balance continues to shift. Thank you for watching In Focus. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel to stay updated on the stories that matter.